Alright, what's up everybody? Setup Man coming at you today from virtual Phoenix Raceway. This is a custom setup for a truck, obviously, because you see I'm driving a truck. And this is an update to an old setup. The old setup ran a 27 flat. This I ran a 26.9 in. So it's just a hair quicker, but I also think it behaves a little bit better on the long runs. Doesn't get as loose. It's a little bit easier to drive. Let's see if I can go out here and put a 26.9 up for you guys, and then we'll talk about how I get around this track, and then we'll obviously show the setup and talk about it. It usually takes me a lap or two to get into a good rhythm and really get a good lap here, but we'll see what the stopwatch has to say here. 26.9 right off the bat, very good. I feel like this setup might have a 26.8 in it, but I just haven't hit my marks quite right. Let me get back around the track here and kind of talk about how I get around this place, starting basically from the start-finish line. So we'll kind of go in order, and then I will go to the garage and we'll show the setup and talk about it. So I am trying to arc this, and I want to cut off the dog legs. I want to shorten the track as much as I can. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm basically going to try to hit the start-finish line coming off the banking and getting onto the apron. So right about the time I'm hitting the start-finish line is where I am starting to cut the dog leg. I'm going to run the straightaway, and I'm going to clip the corner of this, whatever that advertisement is, it's painted black. I'm usually not going to hit that yellow line that is coming out of pit road. I usually stay above it. I want to work myself out towards the wall, and I want to get to the wall by the time I get to these two stickers on the outside. Okay, I don't know what's your Gatorade, I guess. This is where I'm starting the turn in, but it's important here with the trucks, you can drive it in pretty deep. I'm turning the truck in before I'm hitting the brakes. I'm probably up to here before I am off the gas and hitting the brakes. I'm kind of going to ride the brakes for a little bit. I'm not on them super hard. And then probably, I don't know exactly where, but about this NASCAR sign, I'm guessing that I'm off the brakes. And I'm basically following the suggested line. Sometimes I'll drift up a little bit in the middle of the corner, but I am basically staying really close to the yellow line. As I roll through here, there is the O'Reilly sign and the Gatorade sign, and probably about halfway in between those two signs you can see on my right is where I want to get back on the gas. And again, I am just I am hard on the gas. I'm not easing my way into it. I am mashing the gas, and I am just going to ride it, basically the suggested line or close to it, all the way around the turn or down the straightaway. I might drift out a little bit beyond the suggested line on exit. Coming down here into turn 3, I am looking for these orange cones on the outside. When I see those, that is my mark to start braking. Again, not braking real hard and trying to get down to the bottom of the track, and I am probably off the brakes by the time I get to the end of this inner wall here where you can see there's O'Reilly on it. I'm letting it roll through the corner, and then I am trying to get back on the gas probably about here, probably just a few car lengths before we get to that Geico restart zone on the inside is where I'm on the gas. And again, I am mashing the gas hard, and I'm going to use the whole track. I went clear down to the inside wall coming into the corner. On exit, I am going to go, I'll let these two trucks get past me. I want to get clear up here by this NASCAR Cup Series sign. That is my point of saying I'm closest to the wall. This is where I start my arc down to cut the dog leg off. And then I am back here kind of where I started from. And that is a lap around Phoenix. So I'll tell you what, let's go to the garage, let's look at the setup, and then I will end this video.
Best lap ever.
Nothing real radical here. This is pretty typical of how I am running setups. The bumps and rebounds are pretty low. I'll tell you a couple things about the setup. It gets a little bit loose on entry of all things, and I really struggle to try to find a way of fixing that, but it's not terrible, but it just, especially when you're getting into turn 3 on old tires, it gets a little bit loose. it burns the right rear way ahead of the right front, but that is typical of Phoenix. I still made it till I think 1 lap to go before my tire was shot and I had to pit. But I mean, when I came to the pits with 1 lap to go, I think I was at like 2% on the right rear tire. So I make it almost a full fuel run, but not all the way. And the right front's not really an issue. What else here? I got a big gap between the front weight and the wedge. I usually don't have that much of a gap, but I needed that wedge up really high to keep the truck from getting loose on the long runs. And this truck is surprisingly stable on the long runs. That's uncharacteristic of Phoenix, where you get really loose really early. But that high wedge, I'm sure, helps that. Springs are maxed out. That's normal. Tire pressures are pretty close to the defaults. I may have gone up a couple of pounds somewhere on them. I think the left rear, maybe I went up a couple of pounds on them, but nothing real radical on the tire pressures. I was very aggressive on the camber settings. I usually don't run camber this high, but the right front is not what wears here, so you can get real aggressive on the camber because your front tires aren't your problem. The sway bar is kind of aggressive. Usually I run a little more conservative sway bar at tracks where you get really loose. I usually run like a 1.675 at tracks where you get really loose, and Phoenix is one of those tracks. So if this does get loose on you, I'd say go 1 click on that sway bar and you'll be fine. It will take care of it. Track bars are maxed out. That's pretty typical. Again, if it gets loose on you as the tires wear, go a couple clicks down on that right track bar. Might help it, but the front sway bar is your big fix there. The wheel lock, I don't run a real high wheel lock anymore. I used to, but I found that it really helps keep the truck from getting loose on the long runs when you run a lower wheel lock. That wheel lock affects how far the wheels turn to the left or the right when you're turning the steering wheel. So by running a lower wheel lock, it doesn't turn as far left, which means when the tires are getting old and you start sliding around, if you got that thing cranked all the way over in a wheel lock of 12, man, when those tires catch and start gripping after they've been sliding on an old tire, and then they finally catch at the exit of the turn, it's really going to get you loose. So I've stopped running that high wheel lock. And the gearing, I ran a 0.9 with a 4.50. You run it in third gear. That's not a fuel saver, and that comes out to a 4.05 gearing. You will hit the rev limiter going down the front straightaway, but the trade-off of that is you get really good drive off the corners. If you don't like that, or if you roll the corners better than I do and don't need gearing this short to get drive off the corner, try a 1.05 and a 3.82 or a 1.15 and a 3.50. You won't hit the rev limiter as much. You won't get the drive off the corners, but if you roll the corner better than I do, maybe that's not an issue for you. So anyway, that's all I got for Phoenix. Check it out. Let me know what you think. Hope you like it. Hope you run lots of fast laps, win lots of races. And with that, I will tell everybody have a good evening, and I will catch y'all later.